Matrix is proud to be the exclusive sponsor of Shorts with Liz Clark. With over 20 years as a dedicated supporter of the fitness industry, we're thrilled to continue a partnership geared towards success for all those who believe in better.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Shorts with Liz. I am so thrilled today to have an industry legend with us, Paula Comfort, who is the CEO of Higher Ground Talent. So many people in this industry are familiar with Paula, and she has so much great insights to offer us today on the hiring process and retaining top talent and things that are so crucial to our industry. So welcome, Paula. Thanks for being here today.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. I really feel honored to be with you today.
Great. Well, before we jump in, Paula, for those that maybe don't know you and your background, can you explain just a little bit of your experience in the industry, especially in the world of staffing and particular with the health and fitness industry?
Absolutely. So I'll try really hard to make it fast because I know we've got a lot of content and I also don't want to get into too deep into the weeds. So I always start my actual presentations when I'm meeting with a new client for the first time and say, I'm not your average recruiter or fractional HR leader. I've served many chapters in my life and my career journey. My passion for the human body and the power of movement started literally way back as an athlete and a student athlete. And I was absolutely obsessed with science and math, but I had such a deep fascination about optimizing human performance and actually not just in fitness, but also business, leadership, and life, which I learned obviously over time as I matured and became a lot more self-aware. So I spent 18 years as part owner of a high-end group of clubs called the Sports Clubs of Canada. We were scaling the business and navigating actually potential acquisitions and mergers. And ultimately, we grew to 2 brands, and I had 23 clubs that I was responsible for. But during that time, I performed as I was promoted regularly in every single role. From my educational background. So after my exit there, I helped grow a global business, fitness and wellness partnership with an international spa company, which was a really fun time in my life, traveling around the world, opening up beautiful locations in many, many cities around the world, which gave me a real international appreciation and feel for, the world of health and fitness. I was actually restructured out of that role. That's another podcast on its own. And I pivoted to launch my own consulting company, 360 Impact Group. And it eventually evolved into Higher Ground Talent. And we are a company dedicated to recruiting and developing top tier talent in the industry. And also during that time, I actually owned my own boutique club as well called Embody Fitness. Talent development for me, I've realized is my superpower without question. I have a deep understanding of how to attract, retain and elevate the best people in the industry. I've been called an executive coach and a psychologist because I get into the minds of leadership. Like I love dealing with the high level private equity CEOs to really understand where they are and sort of where they're going. We also, really beyond that, we don't just place candidates at any given job. We inspire them. We end up being career counselors, helping individuals and organizations sort of build really meaningful careers. Anyway, lots more about that, but those are sort of the headlines.
I love it. Okay, so before we go any farther, though, you got to tell me what were your sports? You said lifelong athlete,
So I actually played basketball for many, many years, and I also, played volleyball in the off season. And then I got into running. Doing a lot of 10Ks, halves and marathon. I've done a triathlon, but always during this time, I learned at a young age how to golf and ski. So we're lifestyle people, we do it all. And my goal long-term is, to be the only person in my age group at 90 and win something.
You might be. I got a feeling about that.
Yeah, so maybe.
That's great. So listen, you and I were talking a little bit earlier just about this topic and how excited I am to bring this to our series. And, really just at a high level, I'll tell you, I was on a podcast, a different one yesterday. And one of the things that the question they asked me is, what are the challenges that continue to face our industry? And that's a pretty wide answer, but at a real basic level, I said staffing issues continue to be a challenge in the fitness industry. And I was wondering maybe if you could talk a little bit about that. Is why is this so crucial right now? And if you're seeing any shifts in it.
Yeah, such a great question. So I think the fitness industry is at a real pivotal moment. Staffing has never been more important, but I think, Liz, several factors are shaping the landscape. So I have a whole list of things. And again, every single one of these could probably, we could dig into more content. But, there's sort of been a post-pandemic recalibration happening. So many businesses have struggled to reset expectations since COVID, often setting unrealistic goals for teams. I have a ton of examples of this where culture is terrible because nobody's winning. Everybody's losing. I, signed an NDA with one of my clients and had a look at their financials, knowing my background. And I actually said, is this true that only 30% of people are making their goals? No wonder you have turnover. Everyone feels like a loser. Like, you got to recalibrate these goals. This makes no sense. This is a new world. So that would be one, this whole post-pandemic thing. Second one is Gen Z workforce expectations. People, get this together. This is so basic. What Saul and Sarah Pellegrino do a fabulous, seminar on the 4 generations. Like, there's so much data on this. Get it in Chat GPT and figure out, what is going on with this generation. I mean, fortunately, I have 3 daughters, so I get it. Like, I'm living their lives every day, and I really understand it. It's like I have my own science experiment right here in well, they're all traveling the world, but it's right here in my home. But the younger employees have different priorities, including work-life balance, career growth, value-driven employment. Like, we got to get it together here, but that's a problem with acquisition and turnover. Economic pressures. So this is huge. Compensation often is not keeping up with the rising costs of living. They're not. They're not commensurate of the times. It's leading to retention challenges, and people are stressed. We got to figure this piece out. I would also say, from my knowledge and experience, owner fatigue. We've got many fitness business owners that are experiencing financial and emotional burnout, making it very difficult to focus on the people strategy. And believe it or not, they're sometimes subconsciously, saying the wrong things to the right people. And it bleeds insecurity. Mergers and acquisitions, as we know, are huge. Private equity is buying private equity. There's clubs, merging and being bought out. There's transitions everywhere. These cultural shifts with consolidating businesses often create fear, uncertainty, and micromanagement. That's not healthy. You're not helping anyone here. So again, there's lots of solutions to this, like, hello, communicate with your people, get a newsletter going or something to tell them what's going on. And then again, there's a shift towards efficiency. Everybody's struggled with labor costs. We want people to wear multiple hats, like it's an opening or something every day, because we're stuck with higher labor costs. Yet, and training has also become more specialized. So it's harder to find generalists. It's like I was a kinesiologist, back in the day as a personal trainer and a group fitness instructor that became a manager within 8 months. Today, that personal trainer and kinesiologist is going the fitness path and route. Not all of them, but they don't get to go on the sales and marketing side of the business. They don't get to go on the operational side of the business. They got to stay in their lane. And so again, we need to, really have an amazing training and development program for emerging leaders and things like that. So those are the challenges I see. There's many more, but those would be the headlines.
Yeah, I think you said an important buzzword that's such an important word in our industry, and that's retention, right? And I think so many of our clubs understand what it's like and the importance of retaining their customer and all of the sort of love and attention and work that goes into that. But it's not necessarily the same on the retention for keeping employees. So, are there some solutions or tips and tricks to keeping staff engaged and keeping them motivated with, as everything you just said, to all the uncertainty going around and all the fatigue going around? I mean, it's really hard, I think, to keep people motivated and to retain them as staff. What do you say about that?
Well, the first thing I'll comment on is what you just said about, we take care of our customers or we take care of our guests or our members. At a senior level, you're farther removed from the customer. You never should be, as we know, right? We should think and be like a member and work out in our clubs, etc. Don't get stuck in your corner fancy office at corporate. But at a senior level, your customer are your employees, right? So how you treat them is how you're going to treat your members. But there's a gap there. And that's a bit of a headline when it comes to retention for sure. But back to retaining staff and keeping them engaged long term, this is a massive, massive topic. And I'm telling you, I've sat on a lot of panels where I've said this is pretty 101, people. But honestly, very few people they get it, but they can't execute for some reason. And when I look at an org chart, I often know why, right? I know where they're putting their priorities and I know what they're missing. So the latest Gallup survey says I'll be US specific, employment engagement is at an all-time low. 31% of employees are engaged. So retention isn't just about keeping people, it's about creating the environment where they thrive. So I always say to my clients, even if they don't sign an agreement to partner with higher ground talent, I always encourage them to be a top employer. How do you become a top employer? And I'm talking not just about the industry here, I am talking worldwide, industry agnostic. Like, let's be a top employer. So what do we do? What can we learn from all these other fabulous companies that actually have incredible engagement? So number one is strong employer branding. So most people know what that means. And employees and candidates want to work for brands that truly walk the talk. I feel like some of these words are completely overused, but they're authentic. They're transparent, they're real. Public perception matters. What do your employee reviews say? Do you even have any? What about testimonials? How do we treat someone during the interview process is how we treat everyone. And trust me, I could write a little book on this. I've seen it all. I'm telling you, the level of unprofessionalism sometimes is embarrassing. However, there are beautiful tools and tricks we can give our people, our clients, to actually make this seamless and help them become a top employer. Deliver on your promise. If you promote growth opportunities, mentorship, and flexibility, follow through. Follow through. Compensation strategies. This is huge, Liz. Huge today. Inflation is outpacing wage growth, period. And so corporate profits are being prioritized over employees. And again, this is across all industries. Actually, the podcast you had on with Byron, is it Byron from Solid Core?
Brian Myers. Yeah.
Brian Myers. Why was I saying? Yeah, sorry. Brian. They have an amazing solution around this, right? It's awesome. It's strategies to retain and engage employees so that they feel like they have skin in the game almost, right? They're a piece of about employee shares. But there's lots of things you can do around compensation to increase value that sometimes doesn't have to be compensatory. So, for example, beyond salary, let's offer clear pathways and benefits and performance incentives. What about giving a team member an afternoon off when their son is in the state finals? Like, how about recognizing that and knowing our people well enough to say, oh my gosh, go to the state final. Just take the afternoon off. I'm telling you, those little things, that person will never, ever forget it.
Tool. I'll just jump in with one too, Paul. We had a member company who just told me a story of they did an employee incentive challenge and the winner was going to get Taylor Swift tickets. And I said, I know what those tickets cost. And they said, yeah, but it's really important. And it's something to that point that employee is never, ever going to forget.
Never forget. How fun is that, right? That's a great cultural example. So at my old company, Sports Clubs of Canada, we had this thing called And I Have an Idea program. So this was amazing. And we did it quarterly. And today you could really brand this in a really cool way, but it basically gave staff a voice in shaping the business. Everyone had an opportunity to collaborate. Is there anything you can do to improve service, increase revenues, or decrease expenses? That was basically the theme. And we would reward good ideas. And they actually had to take ownership on the implementation, which meant they got to work with cross-functional teams, which really was engaging for them and created growth for them. But I'm also talking about that part-time front desk person who's closing the studio or the club, or the maintenance worker that sees things that we will never see. Give them a voice.
Yeah.
Really important.
Yeah, having a voice.
Yeah. And then culture building traditions. So we also had at our previous company major annual things, annual retreats, team building activities, offsite, celebrating personal professional wins. Go do contrast therapy together as a team. Seriously, get into a cold plunge with one of your team members. You'll be bonded for life, trust me, and they're not going anywhere. Just major team building experiences. I'll comment one more time on career progression. Again, mapping out growth opportunities and development pathways, and that should actually be in their digital personal file that we can reflect on as leaders and mentors and managers so that we're constantly kind of coming back to it to make sure we're invested in their career plan. And then, of course, this is another Gallup survey, continuous feedback. 66% of employed people right now are passively and some aggressively looking for another job. If the real stat though is, Liz, you'll die. The real stat is 40% of them say, if my manager met with me and cared, I'd probably not leave. Hello?
Yeah.
Right? Like, come on, this is really basic. One-on-one meetings, performance metrics, and meaningful check-ins, I think, are the key.
So that 56% that's not quiet quitting that we've heard about, or maybe people aren't quiet quitting.
Sort of similar to
Now
that.
they're just like actively quitting.
Yep, disengaged, like have no relationship with the company at all. It's a job, not a career.
Yeah. And I think, so I'd like to ask, when you look at some leaders in this space and the ones that are putting more focus, it to me feels like a bit like a no-brainer that those that are focusing on being more empathetic, being more transparent, being more flexible, being more available, being more intentional. Again, I think those are kind of no-brainer words, but wouldn't you agree that that's critical right now?
Yeah, but I think what's happening is I think there's a lot of people that are looking at the net profit. And I know a company that just eliminated the entire HR team. So unfortunately, at a senior level, they don't value and don't understand learning and development. They don't get it. And obviously they don't want to get it, you know? Think about again what Brian said about, waiting for the sale. He's mitigating that. He's doing a fantastic job because he so gets it. But I know, I can't even tell you how many that again are looking for an urgent exit and not see the forest for the trees. So
yeah, it is. And I mean, I think again, back to all of the time and effort that our companies put into recruiting and retaining members, it's the same right with staff. And so are you seeing any professionals in our space doing anything different to attract that top talent? Maybe a top talent that has left a company, that's on the field right now and can come. And are there new channels or new opportunities or new paths for that talent coming into our industry?
Yeah, so many. I have never, so in the last 6 months of my career in higher ground talent, I have received at least, no exaggeration, 5 calls a week from pretty senior people saying, get me on your radar. I know what's coming this year. Things have happened. This is why I'm the, part-time psychologist half the time.
Yes.
And I have a whole system for this that I help people with, even if I don't benefit from it. Honestly, this is my give back to the world and the industry that I've, been raised in. And I also treat them so well that guess what? They become a client eventually. It's my life's work. I love this. And so they just want me on, they want them to be on my radar because they know things are happening. The companies that do this really well, and again, it's hard because we're dealing with studio owners that are owner operators in our industry that are small and might have 2 to 3. We're dealing with one-offs. We're dealing with multiple chains, multiple boutiques, franchising, lots of investment money, lots of private equity. And there's just so much future opportunity, as we know, for what we're all fighting for between, the exercise is medicine and the bridge. And so I think that those that do it well it's in their own DNA at a senior level. They get it because it's how they live their life. They're values driven. The people that don't typically hire somebody to do that for them, whether it's a COO or whether it's a VP of ops. It doesn't have to be a VP of HR because that feels like a privilege. You got to be the right, size to be able to acquire. But, there are fractional people. I mean, I just hired a really fantastic HR person for $65,000 that is phenomenal, can do it all, and she'll grow with the company. So there are people out there that can do it and fill in that gap and actually create magic culturally within an organization. So it's there. You just got to have the strategy.
Yeah. And it has to be a priority, right? I think,
Totally.
when you look at some of these staffing strategies, and what folks are doing in our space, I do know, to your point, right, there is evolving expectations around employees today. And I think they have options. And so if they're not seeing if they're not seeing growth, if they're not seeing what they want, they can go around the corner and find it, and probably find it for more money. And so with that, a really important, I think, theme that we've seen arise in the past few years is a work-life balance. And I feel very strongly that if there's one industry that should be leaning in on a work-life balance, it's this one, right? And so can you talk a little bit about if fitness leaders are leaning into a work-life balance culture, if they're not, if they're losing talent because of it, or is it just not a real thing? Is it everybody just doesn't want to work and all they want is a life balance?
Yeah. It's so interesting, this whole topic. And again, to your point, practice what we preach. Every day we are, selling and inspiring about healthy lifestyles, longevity, and, lifestyle period, like having your best life, but health is at the priority, right? So what is it? What's the one number we can do to help you? We should be doing that with our team. So today, I think to really attract and retain, the very, very best, you need to cultivate a workplace where employees feel very valued, challenged, and you've got to take care of them. And so, and honestly, I'll speak specifically about Gen Z because, they have this unfair reputation that they're lazy, they want to work from home, and they're not committed and loyal and jump around to 15 jobs. It's not true. It is not true. We are generalizing when we say that. And I'm saying this actually thinking about my three daughters and protecting them in a way because, yes, they were raised by two entrepreneurs, that have not ever not worked. But by the same token, I see all their friends and they are hardworking kids. And I think it's unfair, the generalization. So number one is the investment in professional development, leadership training, mentorship programs, continuous learning, as I've talked about. I mentioned way back at URSA, I met John McCarthy and Rick Carroll, my very first URSA. So my company invested in people. And John McCarthy never forgot my name, like he never forgot anyone's name. And Rick Carroll and I are having lunch later this month. He's been a mentor for me for many years. So was
Both Hall of Fame winners, by the
I
way.
know they are. So
Yeah.
was Augie Nito for me. So my seniors in my company, our primary owners, were very involved in URSA from the very beginning. Michael Levy and Jake Howe, phenomenal mentors to me all of my life. Yes, they can take credit. They taught me everything I know because they remind me. They're so fun. But I never forgot that first meeting at URSA. And I never forgot how blown away I was with the level of professionalism in the industry and how we brought in these keynote speakers from other industries that were best in class. And being there, networking, and being off-site to think about where we're going and what we're doing was invaluable. And so we used to run contests internally to see who got to go to URSA. So you better be projecting and killing it to get there, but I never missed. I was always there. Rising Stars, initiatives, bring an employee that's done something remarkable within your organization, bring them in for lunch with an executive one day. Can you imagine the retention of that person and the insight and knowledge that the executive would gain by hanging out with, for lunch with one of the rising stars? Those are little things that you can do that really cost nothing. Human-centered leadership is huge, right? again boils down to empathy, trust, flexibility, and honestly, more than ever before, teach this, live it. Bring employees back to new employee orientation that might have lost track on our values. We talked earlier about work-life balance perks, but this is interesting. Paid time off surprises, an afternoon to go see your kid in a play. Like, again, know your people and understand their goals. If you're having one-on-one meetings with them on a regular basis, you're going to have a little chit chat about life in the beginning. Definitely it's all about professionalism, but you're going to get to know your people. Do wellness retreats, incentives to recharge, have partnership with, like recovery spaces, just make sure you have a culture where you appreciate the fact that we work so hard. And then wellness accounts, beyond, employee health benefits, what about other things? What about other things that we can do to actually really align ourselves with what it is we're doing and what it is we believe?
Yeah. So you said three little initials in there that I have personally a PTO and journeys around it. So I've actually been employed at places where we had unlimited PTO, which was a really interesting philosophy, because that way folks didn't have to monitor it. And if you had a high performing culture, which we did at this particular organization, it was great. But what happened actually in that instance, it actually backfired because nobody took it. We were so high performing. And you got to take time, for your mental health, your mental well-being. And so we ended up needing to sort of tweak that. But it was a really interesting, process. I'll tell you something else that I've instilled here at HFA, and it's spot bonuses in real time. If I see somebody that gets a really great project done out the door, or just, did something great on the team, we give them, a spot bonus, and they're unpredictable, but it's what we're seeing in real time. And I think that people really enjoy that too.
Liz, that's
Yeah.
great. And these spot bonuses could be a $25 gift card for Starbucks. And how about a handwritten card today?
Right.
When was the last time you got a handwritten card? I mean, I just got a birthday card from my mom, handwritten, of course.
Yeah. Yes, I'll tell you, my sister-in-law runs an association, and she writes 5 cards every Friday afternoon. It's like on her
I love
agenda,
it.
things to do. It's really smart.
Love it.
So, talking a lot about leadership philosophies here, and I'd imagine you've probably seen a shift in some instances successful, and I would imagine, but are you seeing more top-down sort of philosophies going away versus team-oriented, or is that continue to be sort of the model in our industry?
Yeah, I've seen it all.
Mhm.
Honestly, I've seen it all. But leadership today is obviously everywhere, less about command and control and more about connection and empowerment. The best organizations today reinforce the trust, respect, and compassion. Employees stay where they feel valued. Like the one-on-ones that I've mentioned are so simple. Calibration over hierarchy is encouraging input from all levels, being stakeholders into, bring stakeholders into meetings. Like if you have a hot topic about, decreasing expenses, operational expenses, why don't you bring in the head of maintenance from one of the clubs? Why don't you bring in a front desk person, whether they're a star or not, and ask them in a non-intimidating way. They can prepare in advance for their meeting, session. Why don't they come in and tell you from their perspective and their eyes, ears, what they're hearing and seeing? Some of our best I Have an Idea programs come from them. The other thing is, I'm big on the talent optimizer approach. So this is really big for me. So higher ground talent, I have a collective. It's a drop down on my website where I've engaged with 2 people in the industry that I've aligned with for years. Actually, one of them I met at a Rex roundtable many, many years ago. And the other one was my business partner, my previous company. And so the talent optimizer approach is sort of matching leadership strategies to employee needs. So this is about aligning people with purpose from the very beginning, even during the interview process. And it's a platform that basically decreases turnover. You job match, you find jobs, you job match it to the candidate job matches. And it's good for the candidate too, because it absolutely aligns expectations, because you never want somebody coming in to do a sales role if they're all about service, and they actually can't ask for money. Like that just does not, that's happened. And really, this platform has saved clients money, tons of money. I'm talking millions of dollars in turnover. So it's truly sort of a cultural transformation program. I call him the CEO and the COO whisperer. His name's Tom Johnson. He's paneled lots of different uh, um, sessions and
Tom's
conferences.
awesome. I've met Tom.
Amazing. So
Yes.
the root of, and I use this too. So the root of his whole platform is predictive index. And we can use any tool, because some of my clients want to use their own tools. So I can use any tool, but predictive index, it's so scientific, and there's an art to it too, but it's really scientific. And I love it. So I work with Tom a lot. I mean, we have two or three clients already that we're working together. And I'm telling you, the results they're getting are so dramatic. Like, we've got case studies actually for people to look at this sort of stuff. But whatever it is you have, you need to think about those strategies. And then finally, modern leadership philosophies. Like, the book's called Compassionate Leadership. It's a great book. And really, it highlights how emotional intelligence drive results. So make it your quarterly book club. Do a virtual online with your whole team and have discussions around it. But get the leadership team on there. I mean, step back a little bit to just listen and learn and lead with compassion, because that's what the world needs.
Right. And make sure that they have time to read the book. I think
Okay.
I've been reading the same book for like 3 years. So I think it is important
Yeah.
to make sure you carve out the time. So listen, Paula, I think it's one thing, right, for leaders, up in management, they've got to do their job, but what is it that leaders can be doing to make sure that the managers and the frontline people of their clubs have the skills to really be able to foster an environment that's positive and supportive and builds a great culture, but still at the end of the day drives results, right? It's great to have all of those, lovey-feely, fluffy unicorns and rainbows, but we need results too. And so, but there's a certain skill set I think that's required to be able to do that. Are there tools or trainings, or is it learn on the job? Like how do they get the skills to do that?
Yeah. You know, and are you asking specifically about the leaders or about the team?
Well, I think it's the leaders training the team and to be able to foster this environment. I think sometimes, right, is obviously there's a lot of tremendous leaders in this industry that are at the top, and you would hope that people draft behind them and learn skills. But I think sometimes when you get to the bottom of the Christmas tree, down there aren't necessarily hearing the philosophies, the thoughts, and the strategies that are coming from the top in a healthy way. So, are there certain skills to be able, or again, processes, I think you've already spoke to a lot of them, bringing them in, having them sit at the table with you, go on retreats, that type of thing, that are important for levels of all the levels to understand the culture.
Yeah, I think my response would be what keeps, hitting me over the head as you're talking is it boils down to culture, and it boils down to how you treat someone is how you treat everyone. So I don't care if that's the, mail person that drops off your mail every day, that external shareholder, like vendor, right? Versus how we talk about people internally. You know, I mean, I have clients and examples on the really positive side of this and the real negative side of this. And I think it really boils down to personal values. And I always say sometimes to clients that are struggling, and have misstepped, how would you want your daughter to be treated? How would you want your son to be treated? Would you want them in an environment like this that you're creating, where you're yelling and screaming and dictating and controlling and micromanaging? Like, how would you feel if your daughter came home crying and said, I fear for my job? Meanwhile, that's the actual environment you're creating. And then on the flip side, on the positive side, what are they doing? They're human. They're actually respect and treat their key stakeholders, their C-suite, their director level, their VP level, with so much respect and give them space and time to answer the questions. Example would be predictive index. Predictive index gives you this, and I'm not here to promote predictive index, by the way. I just am using it as an example of many. But predictive index has this amazing tool that once you hire someone and you know your direct reporting structure, it's opportunities for collaboration. And I forget what they call it, pitfalls or warning signs, caution signs on how these two personalities based on this job target might have conflict. So let's know that in advance. It's like using Myers-Briggs and understanding that you're, a ready, fire, aim gal, and I'm a, ready, aim, fire girl. Like, by the way, I'm a ready, fire, and maybe aim kind of person, as you can imagine. However, but that's the truth. Like, we have to respect each other, and together in collaboration, we're an amazing team because we're going to do better together because somebody needs to put a seatbelt on me because I'll justify my decisions, till the 11th hour. But she's probably going to save me a lot of money because she's making me think through all the steps and whatever. More of a risk taker, she's not. So those things are really important, is understanding each other. The famous book with Myers-Briggs was Do What You Are. Do what you are, and it helps you learn and understand yourself. So again, learning and development tools internally, where it's both personal and professional development. My other collective is Alana Turco. She owns a company called True North Leadership. She's got a million, literally industry specific training and development, online webinars, virtual, in person, you name it. But she's got a whole section on personal development and professional development. So I know in my company, we had the highest level of retention, like so high, because we cared. And we made sure that they, as young employees, we had a finance person come in and teach them how to save money. To take care of them. We didn't want them stressed, worried about how they're going to pay their rent. We had, people come in and talk about self-awareness and emotional intelligence so that they bettered themselves. So again, you got to train and develop, but the leadership team has to make these things a top priority because they better have a growth mindset. So a lot of this becomes your employer branding. What are you doing for me? Like, what have you done for me lately? What are you doing for me now? Individualized, but also collectively. And again, it's a big thing. When I talk to my clients about employer branding, I sometimes get moved to marketing, which is fine. I'll work with anyone. I've worked with everyone. And so then I'll start helping them brand things. But again, it's kind of a team effort, right? I'm not working for that company, but I can do my research and I know people within the companies and I can help them figure it out as a partner. But what do you want? And what do you see over the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah. So important. So I'm going to throw another one at you here.
Sure.
That because it's a hot topic right now, and it's around DEI and what are we thinking about that and its impact or non-impact on our industry as we sit today and maybe as we look to the future.
Yeah, it's a hot, big, fat topic. It is. And, I have my own personal philosophies on this. And I obviously coach my clients accordingly based on their objectives and their goals. I think it's an important topic. And I think inclusion and equity and diversity mean different things to different people. And so I think, you've got to define what it really means. And then I think you have to embrace it, and I think there could be another acronym that stands for different words that means the same thing, to be perfectly honest. And there's probably one out there that we could look after this call on ChatGPT to see what the future is. But, at the end of the day, most of my clients, again, let's talk about equity, hire the best person for the job, period. Yet everyone wants some diversity for the right reasons. And equity, again, should you not get the job because of, race, color, gender. I mean, really, truly, at the end of the day, we should be hiring the best person for the job. But there are great people, regardless of race, color, and gender for all the jobs. What happens today is, I don't think it's our fault sometimes that we don't have enough DEI. We don't have the time. We have this philosophy that I call the halo effect during interviews, because every client that I speak to wants to have hired somebody yesterday, not tomorrow. They don't give me 4 weeks. It's like, what do you have in your database? I need somebody tomorrow. And so we jump to do a poor search on what it is we're really looking for. And so I think we go to the low hanging fruit sometimes. And again, I don't think that's our fault sometimes, that we don't really expand our thinking to get the balance we require on our team, whether that's male, female, or gender related, or diversity related. The other equity piece is interesting. Equity can also mean, to me, compensation sometimes, right? And pay. And that's a big, 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 big deal today. Trust me, I have 3 daughters. I'm all over this topic when it comes to females. And I mean, the stats are the stats. And so I really educate my clients about compensation, because I know almost globally now, education, what is commensurate of what role on what org chart based on the life cycle of an organization. And so that's another piece that's big. And that's something that's actually been very difficult today, because I cannot tell you the number of people I've interviewed and said, like, I don't react, but it's like, I can't believe how little they're making.
Yeah.
No wonder they're moonlighting and side hustling. No wonder they're asking for hybrid or remote work, because they can't afford childcare. Like, come on. Like, it's so obvious. And so it's hard. And we're talking double income families, we're talking educated people. So, I think it's a touchy topic depending on who you're dealing with. I'm not afraid of sharing my thoughts and opinions on it. And mine comes from education, science, and numbers. So I'll look at the facts, but I'll also dig deep into, what is your philosophy? What do you see? What do you want? If you looked at a picture of your entire organization, what would make you really proud 3 years from now?
I love that question. That's almost a perfect one to end on. I think, I've learned so much from you today, and we could go so much deeper. And I took so many notes, and notes that I'm going to take back, frankly, to my team and to my board, and really important things, and things that we could be focusing on. And I just think you've seen it all, Paula, and you're going to see more. And so it was such a treat to have you today, and really look forward to continuing this conversation. So
and I got to tell you,
yeah,
you are doing, honestly, you are doing the most brilliant work for our industry. I'm on the board of Fitness Industry Council Canada here, with Gabriel Hardy, our executive director, and Dave Hardy, they're not related, by the way, but Dave Hardy, who's just an icon in the industry, is
they also related to Ed Hardy. Sorry.
Yeah, no, he's one of the original owners of Orange Theory Fitness International, and he owns the Canadian brand as well. It's one of my most incredible people on this earth. He's a great, great guy. Anyhow, we're fighting too. We're lobbying and we're fighting. I know we're attending an international meeting, with the Canadian Forum at HFA, and we are fighting the fight. Whether it be SOCAN or exercise as medicine or tax credits, or, we're fighting the fight. And you were the best hire this industry has seen. I think you're doing brilliant work, and everyone I've met on your team is just outstanding. So congratulations, and we're behind you. Like, if there's anything we can do to support you, we're here to do that too.
Well, thank you, Paul. I appreciate that. I've got a great team behind me. I've got a great industry that I'm representing. So in many instances, it's easy to do it when you look at it that way.
Oh, yeah, we're so lucky. I'll end on this. I have never, ever stopped being fascinated about the human body. That's one thing. And I'm, of course, at my age now, I'm all about longevity and health, and, really being able to do everything I want to do long term. It's like, I really want to be able to do that. But I'm also a role model to so many people. who, really watch me, based on what I'm doing. But, at the end of the day, we are impacting literally the health and wellness of the world, and we're the leaders. And so for me, at the end of everything I do, whether I'm recruiting or consulting or, um, coaching, ultimately we are really trying to have an impact to make people happier and have better lives, really. So
Well,
thank you.
Yes, thank you for being here. Thanks for all that you've done, and keep up the great work. And we will see you soon. Thank you, Paula.
Great. Have a great conference.
Yes.
Bye-bye.